Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited about this video because I'm essentially going to be getting back into my project. Now, hi, if you're new here, I am Aman. I speak about writing, reading, painting, and anything else that takes my fancy creatively, specifically around writing. And recently I have been venturing on writing my first ever manuscript and just getting to terms with my project. Now, if you haven't seen my recent videos, I have been focusing on doing a list of courses, some from Readsy and some from Skillshare, just to set up my base knowledge of writing a novel and making me more comfortable with that idea. So I have been doing that for the past couple of weeks, and now I am actually getting back into my project, brainstorming again and just delving back into the project itself. I will probably do a more of an introduction to the project at a later stage once it is clearer to me as well, because right now it's a bit all over the place and I haven't quite got it figured out because I am at the very start of my brainstorming. Now, after I did the list of courses, I essentially went through all of my notes and put together a list of my next steps. And this list has become 15 items long, which is more than I expected, with the 15th one being writing the first draft. So I have 14 items before I even get to writing. Now, I will speak more about the list and the steps itself at a later point, but the first one on the next steps list is to download Scrivener, set up my project on there, and move my notes into the Scrivener app. And I have done this. So I essentially already had my initial brainstorming ideas in OneNote. So I have already moved them into Scrivener. However, they are a bit all over the place. So what I'm going to do now is sort them out in a more coherent fashion and also familiarize myself with the project and my initial ideas again, just because it's been a minute since I was really involved in the project. So that is what I'm going to do now, and then I will catch up with you after. Hello, so we are back. I did manage to sort through those notes in a more coherent fashion and familiarize myself with the project again, and it's gotten me excited for the project because there are so many aspects that I want to flesh out. And I'm excited that I'm on the start of my journey for this manuscript. And speaking about my next steps list. So, this does mean that the first one is officially ticked off now, which is great. And this list, these items comprise of various things, from researching to brainstorming different aspects to looking at characters to doing the outline. And I've essentially broken those things into more detailed tasks so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming and I know what I want to do next. And at first, I thought this list would be daunting, but actually, it's really exciting to me that I'm about to venture into this journey and really be able to explore this project, this book, these characters, this world. And I'm so excited to do so. The next aspect that I do want to look at is actually researching the genre. So, researching the fantasy genre. Now, I love fantasy books, fantasy movies. Fantasy and sci-fi tend to be the genres that I'm drawn to most. So, in terms of researching it, this comprises of two aspects. The first one being looking at getting a better understanding of the genre, for example, the different types of magical systems you can have, looking at how world building can be brought into it, and just getting a base understanding of fantasy and really making it clear in my mind. The second aspect of this is reading fantasy books, watching fantasy movies, which is something I love to do anyway, so this just sounds perfect to me. However, I want to do this from a more analytical standpoint. Now, the only aspect of this that I was a little bit worried about is the fact that I don't want the analysis of these books to supersede the recreational side of it, because I do love the fantasy genre itself. And so far I haven't had this experience. For example, I've been reading 2 books. I've been reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and I've also been reading The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. Now, for both of these books, looking at them from a more analytical standpoint has actually helped me enjoy them that much more. I guess because I am able to appreciate them in more depth than I had been before. And so that's been a lot of fun. And secondly, The Book That Wouldn't Burn is written from a dual perspective and third person, whereas A Court of Thorns and Roses is written in first person from our main character. And these two types of POV are exactly the types that I am deciding between to write my own manuscript. So it's been great to get a better understanding of the two perspectives, how it works in a novel, and how it impacts the story and the reader's experience of the story as well. So that's been a lot of fun, and I am going to now continue reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. I read a lot of it yesterday, so I may finish it over the next couple of days, but I'm going to be doing that today, and then tomorrow I'm going to be heading to a cafe and I will be researching the fantasy genre itself just to give myself a better understanding of it. So let's go do that. Once I had settled into the cafe, I started by researching the general basics of the fantasy genre. This included getting a better understanding of magical systems and tropes within the genre itself, so I could better equip myself when I start to brainstorm my own manuscript in more depth. I followed this by looking more specifically at the subgenres of fantasy, such as high fantasy, historical fantasy, fairy tale fantasy, as well as many more, in order to give myself a better understanding of the additional aspects that go into a fantasy novel. This gave me a much better understanding on the different subgenres because I was initially struggling with being able to differentiate the difference. Following this research session, I now feel much more comfortable with differentiating subgenres and also understanding which ones will apply to my own manuscript. Hello, so I am currently editing this video and I realized that I never did a conclusion or a wrap up, so I'm going to do that now. Firstly, my aim of this particular week or these few days was to get back into the project because, as I mentioned, I had taken a pause from it just so that I could do a few courses and increase my knowledge of the craft of writing, specifically of writing fantasy books. It was really nice to get back into my project itself, realign with where I was at in terms of the characters, my ideas of the world, and the plot itself, which is currently at the very early stages. There's a lot to figure out, but it was fun to get back into it. And secondly, in terms of doing the research on the fantasy genre, that was also a lot of fun. It really helped me get a clearer understanding of what I needed to do next, and also just helped me get so excited about this journey that I'm taking with writing my first ever manuscript, let alone writing a fantasy manuscript, because there's so much to do in terms of like world building on top of character development, plots, the themes that you want, different arcs, and sometimes it gets a bit daunting, but I am actually feeling really excited for it. I'm so glad that I got back into this project. I'm just looking forward to just keep going and brainstorm more, develop it more, and then at some point actually start writing my first draft. So this week has been great with getting that inspiration back and getting that fire back to me, which I wouldn't say lost, but it had definitely dwindled a little bit. So I really feel that spark again. I just feel like I'm so excited to continue this journey. I absolutely enjoyed going to the cafe to work or to research. That is something I've really been enjoying, but I have noticed that it does take extra energy for me to not only get to the cafe, but also just to kind of set up there and for me to actually be in the place to write. It requires a lot more energy than if I am doing so at home. So I think I want to work on some ways that I can bring working on my creativity and on writing at home on more low energy days, or even just in ways that I can fit it into my week more often, because otherwise going to a cafe and everything takes a few more hours and it can take a lot more energy. I usually end up eating something as well, which also takes up time when it would have been better for me to just focus. So I think that's what I will be looking at doing in the future, because it's starting to dawn on me how draining it is becoming in the way that I am currently looking at practicing and developing this craft and working on this manuscript. And I don't think I will be able to sustain it for too long. I think it works in peaks, but not in long term. So that is something I will be looking at more in the future. But other than that, I'm so excited to continue this project, to really delve into the whole world that I am creating, the characters, as I mentioned, and just so exciting to have a craft that I love this much. And I know I am fairly new to it, but I have to say I'm very excited to continue and just really delve into this. And also I've been loving the authortube space at the moment. Now I haven't been able to join any writing sprints because of the time difference, so I might start rewatching them and putting them on so that I can give myself a time block to work on my own writing, even though it won't be live. So I'll look into that a little bit more. But other than that, it's been great. I'm so excited to continue. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I will start to be looking more into the brainstorming aspects of this novel, specifically looking at kind of the world building and getting a better understanding of what I want it to look like. I have got a few ideas, but I just need to piece them together and make them work more clearly. So that's exciting. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss a video, as I will be continuing to document my journey with this process. Other than that, I will see you in the next one, and happy writing. Bye!